everybody, this is Van Harders of Van Harders Horsemanship, and again, we're on the ranch road. I took a little bit of a break today to take off and go to town for a little bit of a birthday party celebration, and I'm headed back to the ranch now. And as I'm headed back, I just wanted to address another question. I told you guys I was going to try to be as productive as possible, and every time I find myself in the vehicle and I've got a few moments, I thought I would try to share some things with you. Really, for the last half or so of my career, I've been very lucky in the sense that I've had really good fortune in getting horses to get big stops, and I very rarely have any trouble with horses to change leads and that sort of thing. And what I mean by that, flying lead changes. So obviously a lot of people ask, oh my goodness, how do you get your horses to stop like that? And how do you get your horses to do such good, smooth flying lead changes? Well, number one, I never work on those. I never work on those. I work on the pieces of those. For example, in the stops, I never work on stops. I really try my hardest to master forward motion and understand what causes the forward motion. And I want the horses to understand the forward motion. I want them to understand that they're working with me, and I'm like their dance leader, and I'm encouraging them to move forward. I heard another clinician many years ago say that we make them go and we let them whoa, and that's kind of what I'm referring to. I just don't necessarily like the word make them. I will if I have to make them, but I'd rather have the horse to work with me enough to where he's working with me at cantering and moving out. Therefore, when I quit moving as much, or if I stop altogether, my horse stops and comes back to me. Therefore, to get a good stop, I'm only reinforcing what the horse is already doing, you see. In other words, I just make it better. And in order to make it better, we focus on that lightness, that softness, that suppleness, that contact, all those other things that are all just components of really good horsemanship. And then when I finally get to the point where I'm working on stops, where I might want a horse to slide a little bit or to really tuck his tail up underneath him, then I begin to work on a few other little bitty things. But again, I rarely work on the stop itself. That's a really good stop is the result of all those components coming together. The same thing with the lead change. I very rarely work on lead changes. What I do work on, though, are all the components of a lead change: softness, lightness, straightness. All of those things I want the horse to really feel good about doing and very comfortable at doing, and I want those things to almost come second nature to the horse after we've spent hours and hours and hours of preparing the horse for those things. I also want the horse to master the hip movement, meaning I would like to keep their body straight and cant their hips ever so often. I oftentimes mention that whenever I'm referring to canter or the lope, I use the word canter when I'm educating. The reason why is I want people to think about the word canter and where it came from. The root word to canter is cant, and what does that mean? It means angled, beveled, or slanted. So there's a good hint for us of what we need to work on with our horses. We need to work on getting those horses to willingly and softly cant their bodies. If I want to be in the left lead, I want to cant them to the left and ask for the canter. When I want them to canter to the right, I want to cant their body to the right, their hips to the right, and then exit off into a canter. You see, so we work on components all the time. There is one element of timing that I really, really want to emphasize. And when I say this, I want you guys to understand that communication takes time. For example, ask a child what 1 + 2 is, and that kid may have to think about it just a little bit. At the peak of their education, let's say 22, 23 years old, while they're, maybe juniors or seniors in college, or maybe a postgraduate, and you ask a quick kid a little simple question, what's 1 + 2? He doesn't have to think about it, does he? But in the beginning, when they're learning that skill of what 1 + 2 is, they may have to think about it. Doesn't mean we change the way we ask the question. It just means we might excuse a little bit slower response from a novice or a beginner. So now, when do we ask for that big stop, or when do we ask for that canter change of leads? In other words, that flying lead change. And the answer to that is now. Now. When do you ask? Now. Now, if we're at a canter and we're asking for the lead change, say from a right to left lead change, when do we ask? Now. And what in the heck does that mean, Van? You want to stop now? When is that? What I want you guys to think about is whenever you're cantering and you're in the right lead, every time that horse's right front foot hits the ground, I want you to say to yourself, now. And why is that? That's the last stride, that's the last cadence of the 3-beat rhythm of a canter. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, meaning he's going to push off with the inside hind, push off with the outside hind, the inside hind and the left front foot touch the ground at the same time, followed by that last beat of that right front foot. So when that last beat hits, that right front foot hits, I just want you to say to yourself, now. And you'll know when that happens because it's kind of what we call bottoming out. When that right foot hits the ground, it's going to like boom, boom, boom. We'll feel that. So every time you feel that bump, just say to yourself, now, 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 now. So when do you ask for the lead change? Now. Why? When that right front foot is on the ground, that's when the horse needs the least amount of support in holding his shoulders. You see, try standing on your right foot and then try moving your right foot. You can't do it. Not without hopping or leaping or whatever else. So when is the perfect time to ask for that lead change? When that right front foot touches the ground? In other words, now. Coincidentally, right about the same time that's happening, those back feet have just left the ground and they're coming forward. There's not a better time for that horse to change the position of those back feet than when they're in the air. So if those feet just left the ground and they're coming forward, that's the perfect time to ask for the lead change. Not saying, though, in the beginning, not saying he's going to get it correct, but if you've done all your components correctly and you've made sure that everything about asking for that moment, asking for that lead change, asking right at that perfect time, when, now, if you've done everything up to that point, at least you've asked at the most optimal time for that horse to be successful. Depending on the horse's response time, depending on how long he needs to think about it, will determine when he actually does do the lead change. The answer, though, or the other thing to keep in mind, if we always have to remember how a horse learns, and they learn from that release of that pressure. So when your right leg touches him to go from a right to left lead change, we've got to make sure that we do not take that right leg off until we're certain that that lead change has taken place, because that's the only affirmation that he gets. If you ask for the lead change, you take the inside leg off too early, then the horse is going to be thinking, oh, well, I must have got the answer correct. And then you find out a stride or two later that he's not in the correct lead, but by that time you've already told him that he was right. So you've got to be really, really careful about when you're going to reward that positive movement. And if anything, that's the only time I'd really want you to be late in telling a horse that he's correct in his answer. In other words, be a little bit late in taking that cue off. Make sure that your horse has gotten the correct answer before you yield that leg off of his rib cage, okay? So when do you ask for that perfect stop, and when do you ask for that perfect lead change? Now. But let's think about that stop again for a moment, for the exact same reason. If you're cantering, again in the right lead, when that right front foot touches the ground, say to yourself, now, and again, think about the mechanics of that canter. We know that when we say the word now, those back feet have just left the ground. He's got one foot on the ground and the other 3 feet are coming forward. So when is the perfect time to ask for the stop? When those back feet are coming off the ground and coming forward. In other words, now. When those feet are coming forward, that's the most optimal time to ask your question. So just think about the mechanics of your canter and the mechanics of that footfall, and ask at the most optimal time, okay? Hope that helps you just a little bit with our football and your timing on stops and flying lead changes. Until next time, this is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship, and thank you for following me on the ranch road.